Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 1 of Marvel's Blood Hunt event, written by Jed MacKay with art created by Pepe Larraz. Now let me just say that this event is one I wasn't really looking forward to, but I'm happy that I started. Because this comic to me was a great first intro into the world, and the twist at the end sets up a great potential story. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now this issue opens with not a lot of words, but instead a lot of scenes of a variety of superhumans succumbing to a strange darkness as they were 12 minutes away from the death of the sun. And let me just say this right out of the gate, I love Pepe Larraz's artwork hands down. To me he is one of the best out there. But anyway, on the next page, we see how the world ends. Now at this point in the story, we have no idea who the narrator is, but this narrator is saying this is his work, this has always been his work. And after so very long he will finally complete it. So with that said, we jump back to 15 minutes after the son's death with Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, and when we get there, Wanda gets a call from Tony asking what she sees from the ground. In which she responds by saying she sees Marcus Daniel, better known as Blackout, or at least what's left of him. Now, in all honesty, I know nothing about this character other than what I looked up about him, and what I found out is Blackout got his powers by working as a lab assistant. And in said lab, they was working on build a device capable of tapping into energies from another dimension. Now, of course, Daniel always wondered what it would be like to harness the energies they were researching and to truly be powerful. So one day they had an accident that bathed him in the extra-dimensional energies from the Dark Force. And with that happening, his body was now flushed with power. So anyway, getting back to the story, Wanda informs Tony that Blackout was in the middle of robbing a bank when he just exploded. Now this was odd because Tony also tells Wanda that he was getting similar reports from around the world of superhumans like Darkstar, Dusk, Silhouette, and Cloak all doing the same. Now this is big, because Wanda realizes that all of them are Dark Force users. And now the Dark Force users are becoming portals to the Dark Force dimension. So with this rift being formed, Tony asked if she could just simply use magic to stop this from happening. But see, Wanda knows when she is out of her league, because she compares that task to punching out Galactus. Now just to add more context to this situation, Wanda states that these users are opening a hole where an entire dimension's energy is forcing itself into their own world from multiple breaches. And as a side effect, the sun is being completely blocked out. So with that explained, we jump over to 25 minutes and 19 seconds before the son's death, and what we see is x-mwn and TIGRA witnessing the Shroud undergoing the same thing as Blackout and the rest of the Dark Force users. In fact, TIGRA goes as far as to say, this is not an isolated incident because it is going down across the city and across the world. So similar to Tony, x-mwn also realizes that the darkness is covering the sky and hiding the sun as well as the moon. And almost immediately, x-mwn figured out that this is not a mishap or an accident, but rather an attack by a gigantic force of vampires. So as they brace for the impact, we see just how fast the vampires swarm the land. We see Italy, Nigeria, and Canada being ripped apart by the forces of the night. But the bloodshed didn't stop there, because we also see China, Colombia, and South Korea being overrun with more of the same. And once it hits 58 minutes past the death of the sun, we see 2 refugees rushing towards the Latveria border. And in typical Doctor Doom fashion, his borders were so secure that the vampires immediately burst into flames as they tried to cross. So with Doom forces standing strong, we then jump over to Brooklyn 1 hour after the son's death, and we see Miles Morales slashing through a vampire as Blade walks on the rooftop. And when he gets there, he tells Miles that things are looking bad, but he has a plan that could fix everything. But the thing about his plan is that it isn't so much about what he is going to do himself, but rather what Miles could do to help. Now we don't get to see what that is quite yet, but I'm sure it will come into play later on down the line. But anyway, after that, we see the Avengers in a disarray, as they struggle to figure out who they are actually fighting against as the vampires swarm them. In fact, they are so in the dark that even Wakanda has no information on this situation. So in an attempt to figure things out, Vision brings up how Dracula is currently unaccounted for. But Sam thinks this isn't Dracula's work, for he spent a lot of time in developing his vampire nation. So as they try to find out who is behind this, we jump over to Blade driving a truck down the road saying he is on the run and he has information that could help. Now with that out there, he tells them to lock onto his coordinates so they can teleport his rig to the Impossible City. Now following that, we see Tony teleporting all the Avengers back to the Impossible City in order to rendezvous with Blade. Because at this point, they are being overwhelmed by endless waves of vampires. So as they await for Blade's arrival, we see the big rig teleported before the team. And out of nowhere, a mental attack ripped through the team and caused them great pain as a voice tells them that the Daywalker couldn't make it, but they still thank the Avengers for letting them in. And just like that, the 6 vampires from the promos exited the rig. And just like the promotional content, we learn their names and their target. The leader says, "My warriors have been waiting for this," and gave his orders. And it goes as following. He wanted Megrim to maintain the psychic static, and Cruel and Unusual have ordered to battle the witch. Damascene has to handle the Thunder God, and Smoke Eater has to aid Bloodstorm 1. And just like that, the fight was on, and Smoke Eater alongside Bloodstorm 1 went straight towards T'Challa and Captain America. And as the battle kicked off, we learned that their group is called the Blood Coven. And by the way they interact with each other, we could tell that Smoke Eater wasn't too happy to work under Bloodstorm 1. And see, that isn't the only thing you learn, because we also see Unusual use some weird attack to demoralize Wanda, as well as Damascene being able to cut Thor's skin with his claws. Now this is crazy, because Thor's skin is extremely tough due to him being an Asgardian. So as Bloodstorm 1 sends T'Challa flying into Captain America, we see Tony get attacked by Cruel. And somehow, he was able to get his attack within Tony's Mysterium armor. So with that going down, the Blood Coven is completely systematically beating down the Avengers one at a time. So with things getting worse for our heroes, Bloodstorm 1 tells Captain America that he would be a great prize for his master once he turns him. And as for Thor and the Scarlet Witch, they weren't faring any better either. In fact, it was so bad that Damascene was able to poke holes all in Thor's body before driving a final spike through Thor, the God of Thunder's, head. Now this one move completely threw me off, because I did not see this coming. So with Thor dead, Bloodstorm 1 stated that this was a great first outing for his Blood Coven. So with the team all but defeated, T'Challa attempted to order the city to dimensional shift them away, but unlucky for him, the city was heavily damaged and wasn't able to do it. So in order to buy them some time, T'Challa dashed towards the Covenant and ordered the city to use its emergency evac on the rest of his team. So as the system activated, T'Challa was run through by Bloodstorm 1, just as the team dimensional shift away. Now as T'Challa lay dying, he tells Bloodstorm 1 that he can't allow them to have the symbol because the world will need it now more than ever. So with Wanda captured, Thor dead, and Black Panther dying, we jump over to Bleecker Street 1 hour and 23 minutes after the sun death with a person approaching Doctor Strange's home. And when we get inside, we see that Doctor Strange and Clea are trying to assemble the Montressy formula to stop this event immediately. Because that spell is designed to kill every vampire on Earth at the exact same time, but the only problem is they need a dark hole to perform that spell. And the last one was consumed by Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, a while ago. So, as Blade entered the room, Doctor Strange was happy to see him, especially on a day like this. Because apparently this vampire uprising is something different, because this time they are organized and are making one big push to break humanity and put the blood drinkers on top. Now following that, Blade goes on to say that they call themselves the Structure, a vampire cult that was spreading across the world before Moon Knight killed their leader. But now, by the looks of it, they found a new leader. One with a plan that goes as following. 1. Use antediluvian Atlantean rituals to detonate dark force users and turn them into portals to block the sun. 2. They planned a global uprising, mobilizing legions of mass-turned maniacs, all across the globe, striking at population centers, critical infrastructures, and things like that. And 3. They were going to take out the Avengers. Now the way they were going to accomplish the third part of the plan was by forming a kill squad of ultra-vampires who fed on superhuman blood. Now they will be empowered by divergent philosophies of feeding on pain, ghosts, or even magic. And the name this kill squad fights under is called the Blood Coven. And as we've seen, they are more than a match for the Avengers. So with the Avengers in full retreat, Doctor Strange states that it is more important than ever to assemble the formula from what grimoires they do have. So with this plan all but confirmed in Doctor Strange's head, Blade asks him is he sure he wants to cast the spell? Because it will kill every vampire on Earth, including the ones that are on their side. But one thing about Stephen Strange we all need to understand is that he is not afraid to cut off a limb to save a patient. Now, Blade goes on to tell Doctor Strange that he knew Wanda would never cast a spell to exterminate an entire people because it's not in her. But Blade rightfully knew that Doctor Strange would. So with suspicion in the air, Doctor Strange asks Blade who was the leader of the structure and if it was Dracula behind it. But Blade just casually says no. And then goes on to say, do you want to know who put out the sun, who released the Children of the Night, who assembled the monsters that killed the Avengers, the leader of the structure? And with that last phrase, he ran his sword clean through Doctor Strange, saying that it was him the whole time. And with that said, the first issue of the Blood Hunt comes to an end. Now with that conclusion, I got to say that this issue was pretty good and I rather enjoyed the stakes that was established. And like I said in the beginning of the review, I am a big fan of Pepe Larra's artwork because from my point of view he could do no wrong. And as for the Avengers being taken down so fast, mainly talking about Thor, that was a surprise to me, but I will admit that by doing that, the stakes grew that much taller. And like most events that span the Marvel Universe, the GOAT Doctor Doom is always prepared to defend his country. So with all that said, I have to say this was a solid start to the story. Now with that out there, if you want to stay in the loop about any individual storyline, then how about you hop over to the playlist section down below or in the link cards above to get all caught up on everything on my channel. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.